Let's face it, at some point in life, everyone has had to defend themselves verbally. And yet, people believe that verbal self-defense means fighting back. Most people believe that verbal self-defense involves a lot of killer jokes. They also think that it involves using your language strategically to bring down their opponents. But what if I told you that verbal self-defense is totally different from that? Hello and welcome back to our channel. Today, I am going to teach you what verbal self-defense really is and how you can use it to your advantage. But before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos. And with that said, let's look at verbal self-defense. Well, there are times during an argument that you are hit with the realization of what you are doing, and you start thinking to yourself that you don't even care about the subject of the argument. However, you can't really tell how you go into that argument, so you start looking for ways to get out of that argument. But what if we told you that there were ways in which you can avoid that argument altogether? It has been proven that hostile language is, in fact, dangerous to your health and well-being in general. It is highly toxic stuff. Most people exposed to hostile language more often tend to get sick a lot, and they are also injured more often. Not only that, but they also take longer to recover from an illness or injury, and sometimes even have some complications during recovery. Obviously, with all this, it goes without saying that they tend to die sooner than those who are not so exposed to hostile language. However, hostile language affects not only those who use it, but also those on the receiving end and the innocent bystanders who passively receive it. Staying out of arguments not only helps you personally and professionally, but you can even stay in peace. The only time you will argue is if the argument entails something that you deeply care about. But even then, you can have an intense conversation instead of arguing. But how is it that no matter how hard you try to avoid arguments, you still find yourself in one? The answer is quite simple. Arguments can be compared to the times when saber-toothed tigers existed and humans had to deal with them almost every day. There is a part of the brain that is known as the amygdala and is always on alert, scanning for danger. When it senses something that meets the criteria for danger, it immediately activates the fight or flight reaction. Once activated, it goes above the reasoning part of your brain, short-circuiting the whole thinking process. During the saber-toothed tiger days, this was really helpful in protecting them. That was actually how they survived and lived longer. This part of your brain is very helpful when you are in imminent danger because it will help you survive. However, one problem is that it does not know when to stop. The same part is likely to step in when some clumsy person decides to argue that his laptop is much better than yours. Once the amygdala thinks of such a person as a threat, it will get over the reasoning part. That's how you end up in an argument before it takes a few minutes to start thinking about what you are really doing and how you got into such an argument. There are times when we just lose it and start arguing without thinking. However, this will somehow ruin your inner peace. So how can you put this to an end and avoid all these petty arguments? Simple. Through the power of verbal self-defense. Verbal self-defense mainly has three basic parts: understanding what is going on, listening instead of leaping to conclusions, and knowing how to respond. Let's take a look at these parts one by one. Number 1. Understanding what's really going on. This is all about educating your amygdala. The moment someone comes at you with some hostile language, your amygdala immediately thinks that it is danger, and you lose it. However, all you need to do is tune your amygdala to the fact that some instances are not a threat. For example, if a 2-year-old kid were to come at you screaming, calling you stupid, and hitting you with some tiny fists, your amygdala would be the least concerned because it knows that this is not a threat. You already know what a threat is, and you know better than to argue with a 2-year-old. All you need to do is understand what is going on and you can stay detached and rational. However, you can't really understand what is going on with verbal attackers. The most common reason for such people attacking you verbally is that they want to hurt you, cause you pain, or even harm you. All these reasons fit the amygdala's criteria for danger. However, this is all wrong. Just like the statement, "Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you," is a myth. This idea is also a huge myth. I mean, we all know that words hurt. Anybody can be attacked verbally at any time, but chronic verbal attackers, on the other hand, are different. They always put the people around them in turmoil all the time. Even though they may just be psychotics who are out to savage you, that is not really the case. And if they are, there will definitely be signs. However, there are just two reasons why chronic verbal attackers behave this way. The first one is that they may just be arrogant. They literally don't know how to communicate with other people. The second reason is that they are just desperate to get your attention, and the only way to get it is by attacking you verbally. Once you understand these two reasons, you will never see them the same again. Number 2. Listening instead of leaping to conclusions. In order to understand what another person is saying, you must first assume that it is true and try to find out what it could be true of. These are the words of psychologist George Miller. This simply means that for you to understand someone, you need to give them a chance to explain themselves and give them your full attention. If someone tells you something, no matter how hilarious it may seem, you need to give them a chance. You can do this by temporarily assuming that it is true and then listening carefully and trying to find out what part of it is true. However, most people tend to act the opposite of this. When you hear someone saying something that you mostly react to negatively, you will immediately assume that it is a lie. At that moment, you immediately stop listening as you tell yourself the reasons why that person is telling you that. Eventually, you end up jumping to conclusions. And what happens after this? A fight begins. All you need to do to avoid this is give the speaker a chance to talk. Give them your attention and try to understand what they are saying. Who knows? Maybe something they are saying could be a sign that they want to do something like commit suicide. How to respond? The most common ways to respond to verbal attacks are by attacking back, pleading, or debating. But these are the worst things that you can do. As you do this, you are giving the attacker your full attention, which is usually accompanied by an emotional reaction. In fact, doing this will only encourage the attacker to do it again because they have noticed that they can get to you and that's all they want. You mostly need to give a response that lets the attacker know that you will not be a victim of their attacks. By this, I don't mean ignoring them. This will only make things worse. Instead, you should respond in a way that will not make you seem like the victim. For example, you can try the boring Baroque response. This is simply just what the title says. When the attacker launches their attack, look off into space and give the most boring answer. However, always make sure that the answer does not relate to what he has said in any way. This will give the attacker the signal that you are not affected by what they have said in any way. The most obvious result is that by the time you get to the interesting part of your story, the attacker is already saying, "Never mind." This works when the attacker comes out as both a statement and a question. Another way to respond is by using the computer method. This is basically talking in platitudes, generalities, and hypotheticals, while keeping your tone and body language completely neutral. This will completely set off the attacker since their attack did not work. No matter how many times the attacker comes at you, just keep answering so plainly and they will eventually get tired. There is always a broad range of ways that you can answer and avoid any argument for every verbal attack. You just have to know the right response to give and you will be in the clear. So, if anyone out there attacks you verbally, just try out one of the methods if you don't want to argue with them. And that's all for today's video. Please remember to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.